You need to be bold on the big picture, and you need to be pragmatic on daily decisions. So you try to combine the best of both things, right? Be bold on key disruptive moments and be pragmatic after that many times on the smaller decisions to make that dream become reality.
Today, I could not be more excited that I have the opportunity to interview Dr. Christian Coachman. And Doctor, before I set you up, I just want to say thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
Great pleasure. Great to be here.
So, Christian, the reason why I have this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
you see, I'm fascinated by innovation. I'm fascinated by influencers and how they use the influence they've been given to really make dentistry better. But
Mm-hmm.
truly, at the convergence of everything, I know everyone's on a journey and they're trying to figure out how can I align best my skill sets, my talents, and
Mm-hmm.
really what lights me up, what makes me come alive, so I
Mm-hmm.
can be kind of in that zone of genius that I was meant for. And I
Mm-hmm.
see you, and I see what you're doing in dentistry, and I see that you have such passion,
Mm-hmm.
and you're
Yeah.
making such amazing impact with digital smile design. So I'm
Yeah.
just curious about your journey in dentistry, kind of where it all started, and how you got to the place that you're at today.
So I come from a family of dentists in São Paulo, Brazil, and during dental school started to work for my father. And because of his suggestion, I became also a dental technician. So when I finished dental school, I decided that I loved too much the dental technician work, and I continued to work as a technician. And that kind of set me apart a little bit because usually, once you get the degree and you're a doctor, you want to leverage that and see patients and treat your own patients. And for some reason, I decided that even though I could work as a clinician, that I wanted to continue to work as a technician for dentists, even though I was a dentist. So um, for me, it was a way to differentiate myself, and I was always into differentiation itself, kind of naturally and instinctively. How can I be different, and how can people perceive me as different? And later on, I realized, that there were even books talking about that being different is even more powerful than being better, and so on. And I realized that that was a great move. I became the only one that was a dentist that decided to put that apart and put yourself on a position that was considered lower to work as a technician, as a doctor to other dentists. And that kind of opened the doors of the world for me. And I started to get invitations to work with some of the best dentists in the world. That's when I moved to US, and after that to Europe. And for several years, I was just working with the best, because of that unique position. But because I was also a dentist and a technician, I was able to see both sides of the work. And that allowed me to start developing solutions to improve this relationship. And that's how DSD started, as a bunch of strategies and systems to improve, to become more effective on this teamwork between dentists and technicians that is so important to transform smiles. You need both sides to do a great job. And that's when I started to develop tools and ideas. And that's how DSD started. And then the evolution of the DSD concept, I was able to then fall in love with communication. I realized that lecturing was something that I could do well. And I was lucky to start sharing my ideas when Facebook was just starting. And I was one of the first ones to jump in and use Facebook as a platform to share ideas and lecture and give content, not only post random stuff, but transform the platform into a professional way of sharing useful content, and DSD ideas went viral, and I started to travel the whole world. And after that, realizing that lecturing is cool, but you need to put a business model behind it. And then that's when I started the DSD company, not only the concept, but the company, and translating lectures and ideas into services and products. And that's where we are today, basically. Quick summary.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just think it's fascinating that from the beginning, here your dad is a dentist,
Mm-hmm.
and you grow up in this place, and yet it's almost like he gave you permission to be different. And he's like, "Hey, like Christian, if you love the tech side,
Mm-hmm.
like do that."
Mm-hmm.
And
That,
and
yeah.
like that's crazy to me.
Yeah. That's actually true. I never had somebody commenting on this from this perspective, but you're 100% right. My father first, even though our whole family is in dentistry, not only my father, my uncle, my grandfather, his brother, my great grandfather, great great great, and so on. Yeah, I'm actually the sixth generation
Oh my
in the
gosh,
family.
what a
So
rich history and legacy.
it's insane history. We are actually featured in the Guinness Book as the longest family in the world in dentistry. Insane story. So just to say that you could imagine some kind of pressure, and my father was never putting any pressure on me and my brother. My brother also became a dentist. Zero pressure. He was always super casual or very light, very nice about it. Allowed us to pick. I was about to go to architectural school, my brother veterinarian, and we ended up doing dentistry. And in dentistry, he was also never putting pressure. You need to do this, you need to do that, even though he is still working as a dentist a lot, full
Wow.
power, and one of the most well-known dental practices in Brazil. But he was very, very nice about the fact that we could do whatever we wanted. And even in dentistry, very open and supportive for us to really choose our path. So I'm very grateful for his leadership and mentorship in our young phase as dentists.
Well, and Christian, I can imagine in the beginning when here you are, you graduate dental school, and all of a sudden you decide to take a different path. Maybe in the beginning it wasn't validated as, oh, this is a great path. So at what point was it, like a
Mhm.
year in? Was it a few months in, or was it a few years in where all of a sudden it almost starts getting celebrated? But
Yeah,
at first it was
yeah,
probably
yeah, yeah. No,
almost,
nowadays it's celebrated. But that's another great question. I took the risk, and that's also something that you learn how to take risks, because at a young age you have the confidence that comes from your education, and it comes from it your parents, but also from your school, of giving freedom and reinforcing creativity and allowing you to make mistakes, and uh, showing you that making mistakes is not the end of the world, and just go for it. Be conscious about the consequences. Yes, be thoughtful. Um, take it, take decisions seriously, but take risks. Right. So I always had that inside of me. Uh, I always wanted to be different and effective. I wanted to be, actually, the word is effective. I wanted to be effective. And I realized that doing the traditional way, I was not going to be as effective if I could do it slightly different. And I realized that I could have a bigger impact by choosing a different path. And yes, my friends and people that knew me were, "You're crazy, you're not taking advantage of your doctor degree, or you should see your own patients." And I decided to stick to my plan. And again, the only reason why I started to get international invitations was because of that. Because as a dentist, you cannot work abroad. You just cannot work abroad. But as a technician, you can work anywhere. And as a technician that is also a doctor, you can apply for working visas better, so it's funny because you cannot, as a dentist in Brazil, work in US as a dentist, but you can work as a technician. A Brazilian technician can work in US as a
Mm.
technician, but you cannot get a work visa because you're not a doctor. So what do you need to actually be able to work in US and get a working visa? You need to be a doctor to get the visa, but then you need to be a technician to work. And that's exactly what I was. And so the sponsors, the dental clinics that were sponsoring me, they found that combination, and they were able to apply for the work visa. And then that's the same way I went to Europe and so on. So of course, at 29 years old, I didn't have all of these things planned. A lot of things were just happening, and I was lucky that everything worked out well. I would say that it took a while when I started to become a famous technician speaker, for people to start saying, so maybe it paid off. But even though people were still saying you need to be a dentist, and only when DSD became a reality is that people say, okay, now I understand, actually, um, the way you draw your career allowed you to be at this point creating what you're creating, and now you have a business that is making sense. So it took several years for people to say, maybe you made a good decision.
I mean, my hat says pioneer positive disruption.
Mm-hmm.
And by definition, to pioneer,
Mm-hmm.
it means you're forging a path that hasn't been gone on before.
Yep.
Like you need off-road,
Mm-hmm.
an off-road vehicle to go somewhere because it's not paved. And here you are without certainty,
Mm-hmm.
without
Yep.
any guarantees that you're
No
not just
guarantees.
that you're not just taking a lower position in dentistry,
Uh-huh.
even though you have the degree,
Mm-hmm.
possibly less fame, um, less financial,
Mm-hmm.
all of
Reward.
that, and yet you decide and realize you still have to look in the mirror and be true to
Mm-hmm.
who you are, your
Mm-hmm.
dream, your wiring, even the fact that you knew from an early age,
Mm-hmm.
like differentiation. I know I just need to be different and be true to who I am. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I love that you're so honoring. You're like, yeah, great education, great parents that believed in me. Um, I mean, that's what we are. We're like the
Mm-hmm.
product
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
of everyone that poured into us.
But you also need to be pragmatic, and at a young age, if you can be pragmatic in key moments. Everybody likes to talk about following your passion and doing what you love. I don't think that's the formula at all. It's being pragmatic and asking yourself, what is the thing that I can do slightly better than average, right?
Mm.
I love, at 25 years old, I love doing this. Okay, good luck trying to make money doing that, right? I think the question is, okay, I love doing this. Hopefully, in the near future, I'm going to be successful to be able to do whatever I want. And maybe I can come back to this. But at this point in time, you know, what I want to do is I want to find out what are my natural skills, my natural gift, the things that I see that I'm slightly, because when you're young, you're not very good in almost anything. It's just you just need to try to forecast. Maybe this I can do better than the majority. I can be slightly better. So if I invest my initial years here on this, I can more rapidly become known because of that, right? And then I can start building my reputation, and then maybe making the resources, creating the resources, building a project for myself, getting the rewards. And I can tell you, once you start getting rewards for whatever, you start liking it anyway, right? You start loving it. I became good, and people love what I'm doing. uh, you know I'm going to I enjoy it. And that's what I did. I knew I had good hand skills. I knew that lab work required good hand skills. My father was a great teacher on technical work as well. So I had a good mentor. I had the connections. Nobody was really taking this path that seriously in Brazil. And I could become a doctor doing this, so I could become different. So for me, it was a very pragmatic decision. And but yes, you have to bet. You have to bet on the process. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to go through many years where everything feels wrong. It's very normal, for many years, today is easy to look back and say, I made the right decision. But once you're on that, those initial 5, 7 years, uh, many times things just go wrong week after week, and you're constantly asking yourself, maybe this is the wrong path. So you need to have you need to have outside support, yes, but at the end of the day, it's inside of you, and you need to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you need to be persistent, resilient, and stick to your plan.
It's amazing because hearing you, I mean, aside from like you have such wisdom, but the way you talk, you just talk like a incredibly successful entrepreneur. And yet you come from a line of dentists, which
Mhm.
isn't always synonymous with
No, it's not.
entrepreneur. It's
It's
kind
not.
of like almost like stay in the lanes.
Mhm.
It's a proven path, dentistry, right?
Yes,
It's a
yes.
proven path where you if you keep doing what's been done, you'll be rewarded. And then all of a sudden, your dad has a son named Christian that
Mhm.
that can honor the proven path,
Mhm.
but also just kind of wants to do it differently.
Mhm.
Wants to try out something
Yeah,
different.
yeah. I have to. My father was also an entrepreneur himself.
Mm,
He's considered for many one of the initiators of aesthetic dentistry in Brazil. Um, he was always outside the box type of guy. Um, he made many mistakes because of that, and many businesses, because he was not a businessman the same way that I was not a businessman. But he made big business bad decisions, went bankrupt, had problems, financial issues. He's doing great now, but he was definitely, the perfect example for me of don't go outside the box. Just
mm.
follow the proven path, because every dentist that follows the path, dentistry is very generous, and you're going to have a great life, right? Just follow the steps, and that's it. So I had all the indications that say, your father got into deep trouble because he was thinking outside the box. Just stay in the path, don't do what your father did. And I decided to go on the opposite direction of everybody, and actually, of course, try to learn from my father's mistakes, mainly on in terms of management and business and financial decisions, but be inspired by the fact that he just went through the whole process and just did what he felt he needed to be doing, right? And that was always bigger for me than his failures.
I just yeah, this is crazy to think that it's generational, that you're in the Guinness World Book of Records as a family because of this generational legacy of
Mm-hmm.
dentistry. And again, to say what you just said was so profound. Like you saw your dad and you could have got two conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
The obvious conclusion was, hey, play it safer
Mm-hmm.
because he experienced bankruptcy.
Yeah.
He did take risks. And
Yeah.
instead, there was something wild in you that's like, no, we're just gonna let's enjoy
Yeah.
that same tension of what may not work because at least that's being true to me in a like you said in a pragmatic way though.
Mm-hmm. 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 No, you need to be. It's a blend, right? Of being pragmatic. I think that the big picture, you need to be bold. You need to be bold on the big picture, and you need to be pragmatic on daily decisions. So you try to combine the best of both things, right? Be bold on key disruptive moments and be pragmatic after that many times on the smaller decisions to make that dream become reality. So I learned to be bold with my father. Uh, he was not into being pragmatic afterwards, and he paid the price. But I learned from that as well. And nowadays he's very open about it, and he's very proud that I was able to take the best out of him and continue the story, and build on top of it. um, as I said, it's a mix also between being humble and being confident, and being confident and being humble. I call it the humble confidence mindset. I think it's the perfect combination if you want to create something.
Even the fact that you just touched on that is so exciting, Christian, because I don't know. I don't think it's just as men, but we're always trying to figure out how can we own our strength, like own who we are, and
Mm-hmm.
yet not do it in a way that is, I don't know, repulsive or that alienates us, because no one wants to be that arrogant
Yes.
SOB that's
Mm-hmm.
just thinks they're better than everyone. But at the same exact time, you want to connect with something that can give you a sense of pride
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
of this is me, like this is who I am, this is what I'm good at, this is a space I can occupy.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and yet do it with gratitude and humility. And
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
see that
Mm-hmm.
I see that coming forth from you. So my my question is, um, during this time, because like you said, looking back now, it's clear you made
Mm-hmm.
an amazing decision.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's like, "Oh wow, like that paid off." But in the midst of it not being clear yet that it was going to pay off, was there a mindset that you realized, if I don't either embrace this new mindset, I'm not going to break through? Or was there a mindset that you had to let go because you knew it was going to keep you tethered to, I don't know, maybe old thinking or old ways?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You need to embrace the struggle. You need to be okay with suffering. I think that on the toughest moments, what kept me going was the total belief that everything happens for a reason. I learned that, actually, this part from my mom. And people say that, in a cliche way, or bullshit, superficial Instagram quote, everything happens for a reason. Uh, the power of this sentence comes when you truly believe it, like 100%. When you're ready to go through a catastrophe, think about the worst thing that can happen in your life, something drastic, something horrible, and you think about it and you ask yourself, would I still tell myself everything happens for a reason? And at the end, we need to make the best out of it. Do you really believe in this? Right? Or is just easy to say when you are doing fine? And I always repeated that to me. And every time I would go into a problematic phase, lack of faith on what was going on, lack of faith in myself, I'm not ready, I don't have the skills, this is not going to work. I would always revisit this sentence and, in an honest, transparent way, say, I really believe this. So everything happens for a reason. And I will always make the best out of the situation, and I'm going to continue.
Like it's speaking to me so much, Christian, because it's like there's parts of my professional journey, even my personal journey, that I would love to edit out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wish it went from one peak to the next.
Uh-huh.
And yet,
Me too.
if people want to know my story, it's in the deeper places where
Uh-huh.
things were difficult that I
Yeah.
actually found the greatest gifts about what life was. You get the perspective of like, it doesn't matter if I climb the mountain if I don't end up with the people that I love, you
Yeah.
know, and,
Yeah.
and or if I sell out, it doesn't matter how high I could rise if I'm
Mm.
not being true to myself.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
don't discover that typically just going from glory to glory.
Yes.
Discover that in that place of hardship
Yeah.
and
You need,
struggle.
you need to suffer to grow. I really believe in that. I wish we had a formula to not need to suffer and constantly grow. Maybe Dalai Lama can do that, but I'm sure he suffers as well, and he has his dark moments. So we need to suffer to grow. And if life is too easy, you grow less. And so when you believe in that, when you're suffering, it instantly becomes a growth moment, right? And you know you're gonna grow. So you look at the bad moments with different eyes, and you look at the mistakes with different eyes, and you look at the disappointment with different eyes, because you know you're growing.
So here you are with digital smile design, and things are just wonderful right now. Like you're saying, like
Ah,
everything.
not like that. Oh,
Meaning that they're really good, but like, so do you purposely try to put yourself in that place of embracing um discomfort, in the sense of like, I still want to stay on the edge of what's possible and keep pushing it. I don't want to settle, because it seems like you're
no,
not content
no, no, no.
just settling in.
That's who I am. I'm not saying it's right or wrong or better or worse. I'm just constantly trying to see. We went, we are here right now. We already did this. Um, how can I empower the people around me to take over this open space in my mind, go to the next thing, right? Um, so this is an eternal journey, and I hope this will keep me going forever. I cannot see myself just retired, or just enjoying whatever success I'm going to be able to achieve. And um, because creativity is constantly happening, and you're constantly thinking about better ways of doing the things that are already working. I'm whenever I do something that I think is good, I'm already thinking about, maybe in 5 years this is not going to sound that good. So let me anticipate the problems and already try to think about the next generation of solutions. And it's exciting because you're always exploring the unknown, and meeting people that know things that you don't know, and uh, pushing people to grow beyond their expectations. And 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 it looks like people enjoy being around, you know and because they feel this energy of challenging myself, challenging others, and growing.
So Christian, when you speak and like you lecture, is it all like technical, like as a dental technician? Meaning, or do you ever speak about what
No,
we're
yeah,
talking about?
of course, that initially my topics were very technical, but right at the beginning, I started to demonstrate some procedures that I was developing in patients live on stage.
Hmm.
And then I realized the power of mastering the interaction with patients in front of hundreds of people. And I started to realize that I was pretty good at it, and that I could help people interact better with the patient. And I coined a term that nowadays is known in dentistry, that is emotional dentistry, meaning everything you can do to fascinate new patients and create this better relationship. Basically make people not take you for granted, make people value what you do, create perceived value. And this became a big topic. Then I started to realize that most of the strategies that I was developing could only become reality through teamwork. So I started to really get into building teams and leadership, and inspiring people, onboarding people into your project, and things like that. So I started to blend technical concepts with all these other topics, right? Relationship and leadership and communication and differentiation. And this part grew so much that DSD became a full service marketing agency as well. And we generate content, we help companies improve their stories. We help dentists promote what they do. It became one of my main passions, communication and marketing. So nowadays, my course is much more an inspirational course about where do you want to. My initial statement is, where do you want to be in 5 years, and how can we work together to get closer to this vision, right? So first, understand the future, build your vision, then reverse engineer your plan, and let's explore how we can help each other to get there.
It's so neat, this journey, because I feel like originally your platform emerged out of very much the IQ of like, I'm a dentist that's also a technician, and I have this unique perspective on this blend.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all very technical, very clinical IQ based, and yet then all of a sudden you get these insights
Mm-hmm.
into more emotional intelligence, and
Mm-hmm.
how that's actually going to help holistically the
Yeah.
practice,
Yeah.
because now all of
Yeah.
a sudden the patient gets this connection and
Mm-hmm.
feels like they belong. And
Mm-hmm.
yet the reason why I describe it as a paradox is because, again, the two don't need to coexist. And yet
No, exactly.
I feel like you would have been a visionary and a disruptor if you would have been an architect. Because it's you, it's who you are,
Uh-huh.
and yet it's just a gift that dentistry gets to have
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
giftings that you have.
Yeah, I think that dentistry was extremely generous to me more than any other profession. Of course, I believe that when you have confidence, when you are humble, when you're nice, when you're ethical, when you're creative, you can succeed in almost anything, right? But uh, in it was a more natural move for me to be an architect or a designer, and I would be more normal in that environment. I would be more common in that environment. So I really think that
Mm.
even though I never thought being a dentist, and I at the beginning I thought I was completely wrong in choosing dentistry, today I see it, there was no better environment for me to explore my skills in creativity, design, architecture. We are the architects of smiles. We design outcomes, we communicate with people, we lead teams. So I was able to, through dentistry, fulfill all my dreams and cover all the topics that I always loved, and before I even knew I loved these topics, I found these topics as I was growing in dentistry.
So do you identify yourself like as an artist? Because you keep saying you see yourself creative, but have you ever been like, yeah, I'm an artist?
I'm a communicator. I think that's if I had to define myself in one word, that would be the main word. I'm a communicator. I onboard people into ideas. The DSD ideas, for example, were very disruptive and very hard to sell and very hard to buy, right? So it was very sophisticated, and for many years, people didn't really see why implementing many of the ideas. So I started to really master the process of convincing people to do things.
'Cause you were so far ahead of the curve that
In
the
many
market
times,
wasn't
yeah,
ready for
people
it.
say this is cool, but this is too far away. This is not for me. This is not possible. This is not this. People will generate all kinds of barriers, and step by step, many of my predictions started to become reality. Then big companies started to use the ideas and copy, and then many things became the new normal. So I started to become known also as a trendsetter, as somebody that is really creating ideas that becomes mainstream later on. So of course, as soon as you create that reputation, people start to naturally listen a little bit more, and more people start to buy into the ideas, even though they may sound crazy at the beginning. But it's a reputation that you need to build year after year, and and it's paying off now after 30 years in dentistry. And companies are, I started to develop a whole parallel business on consultancy for companies, and companies, they hire me independent from DSD, to help them product development, product placement, research and development, content generation, building better stories for whatever they already have, understanding with features that they need to focus more, improve. So this became a big part of my business today.
Well, again, it's like you're saying in the beginning, like here you were, you had great hands, and your skill set could have been so much of what you could do with your hands. And
Mm-hmm.
now people hire you for the way you see things, the way
Mm-hmm.
you think.
Exactly. That's
Um,
it.
yeah, like that's just, uh, it's so inspiring because, again, the reason why I have the podcast is I believe there's still some people
Mm-hmm.
that maybe they have a passion or they have something that comes up, some stirring, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe they're just afraid to follow it. They're afraid to lean into it because they hear those voices that are like, well, why you? Why now? No
Mm-hmm.
one's going to believe you, or no one's, what are your credentials?
Yeah.
And yet, I want to give people permission
Mm-hmm.
to follow that dream. And I think if you are a dentist, you have an amazing, almost like backdrop, like meaning if all goes south, you're a dentist and you
Mm-hmm.
can create amazing
Yeah.
value.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it almost like gives you this amazing freedom to explore. Now, Christian, have you written a book yet? Because I feel like there's a few books in you.
Yeah, that's a good question. By coincidence, I was just talking about this morning with some team members here. Uh, I wrote many articles, so all the ideas were translated into scientific articles and technical articles and so on. Not enough. I've been working on the book idea for the last, I would say, 5 years. So much is happening every year. Ideas are improved, and I'm like, thank God I didn't wrote the book 2 years ago, because now the ideas are better. But there's the downside that you always kind of postpone. But yes, the book is a must, and it's definitely going to happen soon.
Okay. I feel like as I'm listening, I realize because you have such strong values and ethics and such a strong sense of integrity, it's like you've been playing the long game in dentistry, knowing that your reputation is everything. And
Yes.
you've never done something to compromise that. And that's why there's that almost exponential equity that's continued to build
Thank you.
year after year. So yeah, just to honor you because a lot of people are looking for the shortcut. You
That's
know,
true.
and a lot of people are trying to figure out how can I leverage social media to
uh,
make it
uh,
look like I'm an influencer or I'm an innovator. And you've just been doing it and doing it so with such steadiness and such consistency.
I love history. I love tradition. Even though, my head is always looking forward, I have this dichotomy, and I think it's a good balance. I'm looking forward, but I'm respecting everything that happened before me. I love our history. I love researching about my ancestors. The first one was a dentist in 1850, right? Family has been in dentistry for 174 years. Um, you know, people in the past were able to keep some cool information. So we have articles about the family, we have documents, and I love revisiting it. And the more you love history, you learn from history, you learn to appreciate that reputation happens. It's always a long game, not a short game. And it's always something that you need to work every single day. You always need to follow certain ethical rules to keep your reputation. And that was always very strong in me. And it's almost like I wanted to make my ancestors proud. It's almost like you feel like they're looking from above, and and maybe this sounds a little bit like bullshit marketing, whatever, but it's not. I feel that, and that makes you in every key moment, because many times key moments in your life, you have option A that is definitely the right ethical path, but harder, and option B It's easier, maybe better financially, not unethical, but right. And you can always create stories and find excuses, right, to go plan B and go for it and explain yourself. And if you're a good communicator, you can get away with almost anything, right? But thank God, in all these key moments, I made many mistakes in my life, but in these key moments, I was able to always choose plan A, the most ethical, not necessarily the easiest one.
That is just so profound, Christian, because at the end of the day, it's like no one knows other than when you look in the mirror and you know whether you can actually almost enjoy that peace that comes with just self-respect of like
Hmm.
when
Yeah,
things got hard, no one knows what my decisions were. No
yeah,
one knows what my opportunities were,
yeah.
but I know, and I can sleep well at night knowing
Hmm.
that I did the right thing, not just to honor my ancestors and those people that went
Hmm.
before me, but to continue to lay the groundwork for those that are going to
100%.
follow your
Uh-huh.
kids,
Hmm.
your generation. So it's like, it is this amazing legacy. And I feel culturally that's not a very popular sentiment. It's very much
Fortunately.
live your best life now. Do
Yeah.
do whatever you want to do. Almost like screw the people before you, and who cares about people coming after you.
And we see too many leaders like that, unfortunately. And we see too many people becoming very successful, even though they are like that. And we see too many people admiring these people and wanting to be like them, despite all that, in society, in arts, in politics, in everywhere, in business, corporations. Um, but I believe that at the end of the day, there are more great people, good ethical people out there than the bad ones. We just need to somehow be louder and spread the good stories that you're gonna be happier if you do what is right.
And one of the things that I think that also helps, and this is almost like I struggled a long time for thinking humility meant you couldn't own your strength because I didn't want to be arrogant and proud in the wrong way.
Hmm.
So grappling with what humility was difficult for me.
Hmm.
And one of the things I realized is nobody wins if we downplay um, who we are. Like
Yes,
Christian, if you don't shine as bright as you possibly can, it doesn't
100.
help anybody. Like
Yes.
meaning because only you can be you and only you can occupy that influence and that light that only you can shine. So
Yeah.
it's like I want you to be as successful and
Hmm.
to be as generous as you can with your
Yeah.
message, with the life that's in you and pouring it out. And that's exactly what you're doing. Because if
Yeah.
you're like, well, I don't know, it might threaten other people. It's like, no, you don't know the person you may not be able to reach if you decide to play it safe,
Yeah.
if you decide to
But that's the
dilute.
mix. Huh? That's the
Yeah.
mix between confidence and humbleness. You if you are only humble, not confident enough, it's going to be weak, right? And your impact will be smaller. If you're extremely confident and not humble enough, it's going to be arrogant. It's going to be pushy. It's not going to be nice. So, um, my strategy is always like to not take myself that seriously when I think I'm cool, when I think I just did something amazing. Uh, and at the same time, don't be that hard on myself when something is not cool, right? And I'm not on my best moment. But not taking myself too seriously, not taking my achievements too seriously in terms of not making it the thing, right? Oh, this is so, uh, and really listening to learn, not to answer. I think that's another great lesson. Listening to learn, because and I say that to myself because many times I make this mistake. I'm far from being on control of all these issues. Much easier to say all these things on a podcast, but we know that every day we are uh, we need to challenge ourselves. We need to revisit ourselves daily, right? We need to do this recap and say all those things. I love saying these things on interviews and things like that, because I'm actually saying to myself, not to anybody. Say, remember those things, right? Tomorrow morning you're gonna make a mistake. Next week you're gonna be slightly arrogant with that person. You're gonna make a bad decision the next month, and you need to keep yourself accountable, right? You need to be constantly exercising, controlling your ego. Um, and I know that I like to be on stage, I like to speak, I like to influence. So my ego can easily get out of control, easily, if I'm not checking on it daily and weekly. So it's a constant work.
I just love the transparency, Christian. So if I'm listening right now and I'm like, okay, I want to work with you or connect with DSD, where would you want our listeners to go?
Our website is amazing. We really work hard to make it very clear, transparent, honest, and informative and dynamic. So digitalsmiledesign.com. Everything about everything that we do is there. We have an online education project called DSD Online. And my Instagram, I'm very active. I have my podcast on all the platforms. It's called Coffee Break with Coachman. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to share this episode over there as well. So my podcast, my Instagram, and my Instagram is Chris Coachman, at Chris Coachman, and my website digitalsmiledesign.com. And I'm very responsive, very accessible. If you send me a message on Instagram, I'm answering all of them myself. And yeah, hopefully we can connect with new people through your platform.
Okay, Christian, I think you're ready for my final question. So you're walking down the street today, and off in the distance, you see 18-year-old Christian, and you only have a brief moment to communicate one sentiment to him. What do you share?
Believe in you. Yeah. If it's only one sentence, that's it.
And that really is the perfect encapsulation of what I want the audience to hear. Between the lines of everything that you were saying with your story, it's like, I hope when that stirring or that inspiration came up, between what you were saying and they're like, oh man, maybe that's the thing for me. It's like, well, Christian just gave you permission. Believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Go for it. There's no better time than now to
Yeah.
step up, to step out. And Christian,
But
connecting.
people confuse with believing that, oh, I'm gonna be the best, I'm gonna be the greatest, I'm gonna have the next great idea. That's not what I'm saying. um, Not everybody can be everything, right? You need to be yourself, but you just need to believe in you, meaning that you can become the best version of yourself. There's nothing else you can do.
I knew when we connected on our Zoom, everything you were saying, I was just like, I was so surprised because I don't know. I talked to a lot of dentists, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden you were just so different in the way you see things, in the way that you talk.
Yeah,
But I still didn't know much about you. So
Mhm.
discovering you and your story on this podcast has just been a joy, like truly an honor to have your
Thank you.
time. Um, I'm so thankful for the generosity that you have in the way that you serve dentistry. Again, just the way you conduct yourself with such integrity, and yet you have such vulnerability and transparency, knowing just the struggle of humanity. Like, it's not
Mhm.
lost on you.
Yeah,
You are this
thank you.
philosopher, artist, communicator, influence, innovator, And I just want to honor you for that. And I just want to say, like, Christian, thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
Oh man, no, was I really enjoyed it. You are a great moderator, and I hope that one day we're gonna invert our roles here, and you can join my podcast, and I can learn more about you and your journey.
Well, thank you so much, Christian.
All the best.